Morgana Mocha. What a clever little witch. She fooled everyone in her old town and escaped her death by burning at the stake. She now had to find a place where she was unknown. Morgana snuck back to Mocha Manor and retrieved the gold coins she kept locked away in a hidden safe, and then took off for foreign lands. She still had the thirst for blood, pain, and torturing of others. The evil had set deep into her soul and mind by now. She traveled many miles and many years searching for a place she could call home. She grew very tired and weary from her travels, losing hope she would find the perfect place. One cold and rainy night, she decided to stop in at a local pub to rest and catch some warmth. As she sat alone at a table, drink in hand, she watched a small man making his way over. He was old, crippled, and stank of swamp bog. "May I sit and have a drink?" he asked. Morgana nodded her approval. "What brings you here?" the man asked. Morgana explained in little detail she was looking for a fresh start. The man then spoke about an island very small and far. On this island was a prison where the most violent criminals were kept. He told her they were always in need of nurses and would provide her room and board for free there. "Are there only male prisoners there?" Morgana asked. She preferred the taste of a woman's blood, as it was sweet, not bitter like the blood of a man. She then asked the man, "Where can I find someone who can bring me to this place you speak of?" In a drunken slur, he replied, "For a price, I could bring you myself." Morgana pulled out a small burlap sachet filled with the last of her gold coins. "Will this be enough?" she asked. He took the sachet from her and felt the weight of the coins. "Oh yes, this will do just fine." That night Morgana and the man set off for the island by boat. It took 8 days and 7 nights to reach the beach of the island. "Oh, what a beautiful island," she said as she stepped off the boat. The man replied in a cold tone, "Yes, it is. We will have to set up camp tonight here. The prison is a few hours into the island through the forest." The next morning, Morgana's eyes flickered open to a beautiful sun. She did, however, note an eerie feeling loomed in the air. Morgana quickly jumped up. She was ready to walk to this prison she had heard so much about. "This will be perfect," she thought to herself. "My victims this time won't even be missed." She chuckled to herself. "My new victims are a burden on society. No one will ever look for them." The prison was dark and gloomy on the outside. It was made of concrete with a wall around it. As Morgana entered, she could hear the cries and insane screams of the prisoners there. She approached a small parlor area. The man turned to her and said, "Wait here. The doctor will be with you shortly." "Doctor?" she asked. "Yes, he owns the prison and runs the medical office here," the man replied. Morgana took a seat in an old, worn leather chair. She heard the screams once more and felt something was wrong. These sounds are not just a human screaming in pain and torture. This is almost animal-like. She was so lost in her thoughts, she barely heard the footsteps coming down the hall. Morgana looked up to see a tall man with silver hair and a long white coat in front of her. "I didn't mean to frighten you," he said. Morgana looked at this man's face very closely. Something was very familiar to her. He began to smile at her. "I have searched far and long for you." Morgana looked at him with confusion in her eyes until she saw it. "My son! Oh, my son! Michael!" Morgana screamed and jumped up to embrace her son. She thought she would never see him again when she left him back in her old town. Michael explained, "Mother, after you vanished, Guinevere told me you were still alive and fleeing. I stayed with her throughout my school years until I became a doctor. Then I traveled the lands looking for you, my mother, till I found myself here on this island. Michael went on to tell his mother about buying the prison and how it's a bit different from any other prison she has seen in the mainland. You see, Mother, science is my true love, Michael explained. I needed a place where I could conduct my experiments in private. Some would call them genius, some would deem me mad. I choose to make this island mine. Let me take you on a tour? Morgana was proud of her son and excited to see his work. As they walked down the hall, he explained, "My experiments are cutting edge. I inject animal DNA into the prisoners. I want to make the perfect mutant blend of human and animal, a beast like no other in this world." Morgana was amazed her son had suppressed her. She thought, evil must run in the family genes, for my son is in fact an evil genius. She was proud to see prisoners chained to the floor as she walked from room to room. Some had horns like a goat coming from their foreheads and hooves replaced their feet. A woman sobbed, wiping her tears with her scaled hand. She turned to her son and asked, "Are they all like this?" He replied, "No, there are a few that are highly functional. You shall meet them soon." They walked on until they reached another wing of the prison. "Mother, this is where I keep my most prized experiments. Follow me." Morgana followed her excited son and was amazed to be greeted by a woman with webbed fingers and feathers instead of hair. "Mother, this is Margaret. She is my daughter," he said. "What?" Morgana asked, her mouth open in disbelief. Dr. Mocha explained how he mixed the DNA with an embryo and then placed it in a human prisoner in the female wing. "Is she your only child you have?" Morgana asked. "No, there are a few others like Margaret, and I have one human child. She is still in the old town." There were other mutated prisoners that were like Margaret. These prisoners served as servants and nurses for the prison. They also were allowed to roam the grounds within the wall outside freely, unlike the others. Morgana was oddly pleased her name shall live on. That night, when they sat down for dinner, Morgana met her son's most loyal servant, John. John was short and had a tail coming from his backside. His hands were covered in fur, as was most of his face. Unbeknownst to Dr. Mocha, John had been planning a revolt with the other prisoners, including Margaret. Margaret and John, being in love, planned to revolt and leave the island for a new life of true freedom. That very night, seeing that the doctor was distracted by his mother's arrival, John decided it was the best time for revolution. He hurried back to the other patients after serving dinner to let them know their plan was to be acted out tonight, shortly after bed. After all were in bed fast asleep, John and Margaret quietly unlocked all the doors and locks, freeing all the prisoners. Then they went up to the sleeping quarters and tied up the doctor and his Morgana. "How can you betray me like this? I'm your father! I made you!" he screamed at Margaret. "You will never be my father. You're evil and belong in hell!" Margaret screamed back as she ran out of the bedroom. "Now you can deal with your sins, both of you," Margaret said as she looked at the newly freed prisoners now surrounding the door. "Do as you please with them." And she walked out of the bedroom. The prisoners, filled with anger and rage, ran inside and started ripping them apart piece by piece. Margaret and John ran from the prison to the beach to the boat that was left there. "One last thing I have to do to make sure they will remain here forever," Margaret said as she lit a match, throwing it on the trail of gas she had let leak as she ran from the hospital. Margaret and John got away from the evil doctor and his island. No one else made it out alive. The island remained unoccupied for centuries, until the day Miss Dark Ebony Mocha discovered the deed in an old safe left to her by her great-great-great-grandmother, daughter of Dr. Mocha. The island is now said to be haunted. In the late night, people have reported hearing screaming and howling. No one dared go to the island until now. The Mocha Corporation presents the beautiful Island of the Damned.
Margaret screamed back as she ran out of the bedroom. "Now you can deal with your sins, both of you," Margaret said as she looked at the newly freed prisoners now surrounding the door. "Do as you please with them." And she walked out of the bedroom. The prisoners, filled with anger and rage, ran inside and started ripping them apart piece by piece. Margaret and John ran from the prison to the beach to the boat that was left there. "One last thing I have to do to make sure they will remain here forever," Margaret said as she lit a match, throwing it on the trail of gas she had let leak as she ran from the hospital. Margaret and John got away from the evil doctor and his island. No one else made it out alive. The island remained unoccupied for centuries, until the day Miss Dark Ebony Mocha discovered the deed in an old safe left to her by her great-great-great-grandmother, daughter of Dr. Mocha. The island is now said to be haunted. In the late night, people have reported hearing screaming and howling. No one dared go to the island until now. The Mocha Corporation presents The Beautiful Island of the Damned.